Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome back to the off-the-cuff recording that we're going to do here because we have Antonia Lau with us. Woohoo! So, Antonia, we would like you to talk a little bit about what you do as the psychic of psychics and what you see in the near future and what we are accomplishing here as the forerunners of the Starseeds, the people who had volunteered to come here to do the work for humanity's ascension. Thank you.
Starseeds is the correct word, and they've been coming, like I said, prolifically on planets since after World War II, when we saw the debacle that had created for humankind as well as the world. So I'm happy to be aboard with Starseeds. It's an important time frame that we promise not to, how can I say it, run and hide, not to just, what is it called, cognitive dissonance and go to the normalcy bias and forget it's all happening. Because what I like is practical, tangible proof. So when I was given this information about the changes in the world, it didn't incite fear in me. I thought, wait a minute, what do we need to do to process this? How can we handle this? And so I was very important for me to collect all the data that was out there. But what I found was what I was divinely guided and given years before it would happen would come to pass. And to this day, it continues each week to be confirmed by scientists. When no one was discussing the word Antarctica, I was talking about its influence in conferences back in 2010, okay? And so it's an important process. Now everybody's on board, which is great, no problem. Should be no competition between us. We have a lot to put out there in the consensus. But this is not a small event. And as I like to state that Earth has done this some 82 times in Earth's history, she's changed her geographic pole's position. And literally, for scientists have noted, 139 times just the magnetic pole that they can see. However, I'm not sure who may be familiar with the great prophet Edgar Cayce, who had this downloading of information, and not just superficial, this is the depth. The source states through his work that this happens on the planet as a natural cycle every 100 to 125,000 years, that it actually goes 360 degrees, but it does it in quarter turns. We are right in the midst of a quarter turn. Now, I'm a hard and fast skeptic. I like viable proof, and that could be that academic base that I was born with. But what I'm stating is these changes have happened. So when I was guided to show where the final location for this period of the turn for the South Pole would be, it was Cape Town, South Africa. Now this was years ago, and more than 10 years ago, 2010, when I finally was able to put it up on YouTube. The interesting thing is now you can see NASA doesn't recognize or realize that happened in what's happening. If you see, I have it on my website, NASA didn't tell the public, but it shows that shift already. We see that the equatorial line is 17,000 miles now. Africa lies south on NASA's video from January to the end of the year. So you can see it, and I have it on my website if you want to look. I just put in those Earth change or the NASA in the search. But as you see, I was finally able to make an articulated globe because no one had it out there. And if I can show you, putting Cape Town as I was guided at the South Pole, at the new South Pole to come, that final in this turn, and then changing the North Pole, scientists note that Hawaii was at Antarctica 13,000 years ago. It will now end up being in the new Arctic Circle. So it's important. We see that, everybody notes the changes in the North Pole at this time, and we see that it was headed towards Siberia. However, nobody's talked about the perturbation that comes, and NASA's been very quiet about it, that comes from that 10th planet, Planet X, that's been around since 1960. It was on the front page cover with articles about what was going to happen in 50 years before it's here. Now, the governments of the world are aware of this. That's why you see the intensity of the elite in governments building bunkers where it's safe. It is always safest, or these changes will be safest, Casey confirms as well, in what is southern and eastern Canada. So whoever's in New Brunswick, you're on the coast though, so you have to make sure you're safe. But and Australia, will be those safe areas. So literally what is happening is the governments don't want you to know, because unfortunately the ruling elite at this time have a mandate. They want the world population down, and that's a real mandate. I was actually guided to a gentleman that was a whistleblower for the elite. He had been in all their meetings. So this was eerie because I was guided to listen to his interviews for 3 hours, and I was scheduled for workshops on a cruise line for 7 days. And the next morning, this man is staring at me with his wife, and it happened to be the man I've been watching for the month ahead, his 3-hour interviews over and over again. I like to not just get the information one time. And he confirmed that week for me. I only had time through my workshops and my psychic work for readings, and there were other readers and all that on the board. 23, Dr. Richard Hoagland, Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman. And they said at the end, the host of the cruise said, they've all been wanting you, because I gave them workshops on what was happening spiritually, mentally, and physically. So it's important to understand the government doesn't want you to know about the physical, because it causes chaos to the entire economic scene for them until they decide to pull the plug. But they themselves are building their bunkers at a rapid rate at this time. However, because they don't have the compassion starseed mandate, they will not make it through. Their vibratory rate will not match what the earth is growing to. And so for those that do, that have this technology, your duty is to survive, thrive, teach as many others as possible, share that knowledge out there so they can rebuild. And this is for generations. But with the compassion and generosity that has been missing in the Western world for way too long. So what is happening is I don't like to try to convince people. There's no need to. If you just look at the stats and the records, I had a list, which was interesting. I noticed that we usually have 20 to 25 erupting volcanoes per year. And I was watching this since 1999. I got the computer for the first time, and I go on and research all these, like I said, areas for data, 12 to 16 hours every day. And what I noticed was all of a sudden, I guess it was somewhere around 2009 or 10, I noticed there was some 60 active volcanoes. And I thought, that's interesting. What happened to the 2025? Then I went back a few weeks or months later, and it was now 90. Then again, 120. The last time I checked was just a year ago. It was 1,100 active volcanoes with over 190 erupting. And that literally not being reported in mainstream news because they want to keep everything is going, and they say to not inform the public for the problem of chaos. Again, they need to have civil groups in every country, in every world, to train to what is necessary to do this. If we go back to Atlantean times, and that's where starseeds come from, literally off planet and back through Atlantis again, you have to understand, we promise. The odd thing is this. All souls that come at this time, and this is again confirmed information, I don't share just myth or belief or theory. We don't have time for that. Never have. But what happens is all souls that are starseeds asked to come at this exact time in history, promising to help everybody mentally, physically, and spiritually to get through this. Now, what I found was he told me, this gentleman that was the elite insider, he said, Antonia, he said, you know that movie, The Secret? He said, yeah. He said, well, we knew we could control every group. We had them down. We can get rid of everybody. He said that the viruses weren't working as well as we could manufacture them and killing enough people. But he said, we had to get rid of those New Agers. He said, they call you guys New Agers. And he said, they knew this was the group they needed to get rid of. He said, so that movie, he said, we backed it financially really heavy. He said, and it worked overnight. None of the New Agers are going to do a darn thing to prepare, because they think if they concentrate on it, they'll attract it. Not that it's a natural, normal cycle of growth and change for this planet, and all planetary structures throughout our solar system and the cosmos have a natural rhythm, just like the Fibonacci sequences, the Solfeggio. Do you understand? It's important that we have to understand everything is cyclical. They literally, how can I say it? So what is important to understand is this is not just, how can I say this, hearsay or dynamic to frighten people. And they did it on purpose. They put the date, intensified the date of 2012, because after nothing happened in December 22nd, everybody would stop preparing, which was their plan. They were thrilled. They were toasting their stogies and their brandies because it worked overnight. And my point is, darn it, get in there and do the job you promised to Divine Creator before you were born. This is a mission, not just to sit back. I want you to meditate or whatever you want to do in a safe spot. in a safe location. And I want the knowledge and technologies that are coming in and being downloaded to you and others to get out there for generations to come. All the clean energies, the zero energy processes, all this is now coming to, but there's work to be done. And then there are people that just only want to ascend, and that's it. Well, this ascension process means raising up, evolutionary ascension, as well as spiritual ascension. So you have to understand, it doesn't mean do nothing and just meditate. It means act on what you're being downloaded. Clear your mind, work with whole brain, left and right, in balance. And there are many ways to do so. But it astounds me where people will brush their teeth and shower and get dressed and never take 5 minutes to download from the source, God Creator. As Starseeds, we're connected. We never are so arrogant that we're supposed to believe that the 2% of the brain that we've been using, and Starseeds perhaps a little more, but the point is we're supposed to be utilizing that connection. We are spiritual and material, both. And what is interesting is we have to use that dynamic and balance. So literally, there's work before the golden age can happen. And we're the ones that promised to put in the legwork. No fear, no time, using your intuition heightened to a degree. But because you have a care for others. I have so many people coming into my practice, or the wealthy that will come, and they just want to build a place for a house, off grid for their family of 24 or 48. And I'm thinking, that's a little selfish. What I want them to do is to build for communities like we are. It has to be, like I said, the elite have a plan for it after those major events that they want to wipe out everybody with their drone and their satellite systems, laser systems that are around. So the whole point is to lay low. No need to protest. Wish them well. They'll need it. But the point is to use your guidelines to be guided where locations are safe, or I do that as well. I also see a lot of in this industry because they want to sell books or sell information. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're putting those people in harm's way because they're sending them to places that I know will be frozen over. I know that won't be there. And that's going to be ineffective. So you want to be guided intuitively. Each starseed, each person that is meant to rebuild is supposed to have on a core level on their soul where they promised to be, what they promised to do. But remember, it's not just for this generation, it's for several generations to come. So yes, we usher in the golden age, but we're the ground workers, or they call it the ground crew, but we work from this level, from shifting this dynamic that we've been in, this poor imbalanced dynamic, and shifting it to this proper dynamic. So you can't normally have conversation about this. I've been talking about this since the 70s, and I never was afraid. They used to call me weird. They say, oh, Antonia, she's so weird. I said, they're going to be volcanoes erupting in the United States. They go, oh, no, that's over in, those other countries. And then May 1980, what happened with Mount St. Helens blowing? And I just sat back. I didn't say, I told you so. There's no need. Steam just vented, and it killed everything within, 5 miles off that side? So it's important to understand this is not small. And now we have new volcanic ridges just growing at a rapid rate, hundreds at a time is when old volcanoes go off or tectonic plates are moving and changing. So all the sinkholes you see are not because of because there's been a leakage or broken pipes. I watched it used to happen once a month, a sinkhole, and they'd put it in. Now it's hundreds all world round per year. Methane releases are going on. Lakes are being drained overnight. So people have to stop being jaded. Stop looking at just their iPad and feel and be in balance with the earth. What is she doing? Watch what she is doing. And so what I found is everything they had told me has come true. So that's the eerie part. The scientists confirm it every time. When they started talking, they would battle me on Antarctica. Oh, it's more ice than ever before. Now, we know that it's melting at such a rapid rate, they're afraid, and it's uncovering all these structures. Because underneath Antarctica is a 600 million square mile tropical rainforest. And how did it get that way? If it was a gradual cooling, it would have been brown, then covered. Instant means green underneath, and they're tropical plants. So it's important to understand it happens rapidly. So those new areas, unfortunately, will be beloved Hawaii, as well as which is Cape Town. You notice Cape Town has been problematic in the last couple of years because the water concerns, no water, no problem. But I love how Mother Nature is trying to move people on, kind of go. And you have producing the United States, those dark factions of the government producing lasers, actual lasers, those fires were not wildfires. You have all the proof, and I've had to research all that to clear those people out of there. So this is nothing to be frightened of. Remember, look at all the topography of the planet. Underneath the sea, aren't we seeing beautiful mosaics from brilliant civilizations from before? Aren't we finding all these wonderful structures that are underneath? Well, they used to be above as well. So there should be a process of your thinking that doesn't cut it off because you don't want to hear it, to realize this is how the planet grows, and humankind is meant to as well. So she almost always calls back down to just under 2 billion people every time these events happen. But remember, you have one soul that lives forever. And yes, we keep getting in these cute bodies and nationalities and religions all the time, but that's the soul, okay? But the point is, on the planet Earth, we have to raise the quality of evolution for humankind. We've been reticent. That's been the issue. So it's important to know, to understand this process, or what's going on right now. So if you have any questions, please, I'd be happy to answer any for you.
Oh, Antonia, this is so amazing, and it's so spot on for everyone here to listen to what you've been saying. This is so wonderful. There are 23 of us now here, and whilst waiting for Thomas Bowie to step in, and we were so lucky to have you here so you could talk about what you just talked about, which is it's like a wake-up call. Come on, guys, you really have to do the work.
Yes.
You can't just sit there and think about your own family survival. It's the whole of humanity. We are all one, connected as one from source. So here we are, and we've got a couple of minutes left. No, actually half a minute left.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to just voice, and you have free will to apply the information or not, always.
Oh, thank you, Antonia. And this is the 62nd FESIG meeting. In between, we have this off-the-cuff talk from Antonia, and we would like to have Antonia coming back to FESIG to talk about these ascension matters, as she's the psychic's psychic. We really need her to help us as well to be able to see through what we can't see ourselves and be safe, and with the messages from up high. Right, so if there's any question, I think we can take 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, I have a question.
Session. Yeah, go on then, Eliza.
Okay, so I was doing some simulations earlier in pole shift, and actually I did a couple articles on that one called the Noah factor. So I came to pretty much the same conclusions. Have you calculated where the pole shift axis would be, which would be 90 degrees? Okay, great.
Yes,
great.
I did. That was the calculation. I have a video on YouTube for that, and on my link it on the YouTube channel. But this is the articulated new globe, the new red line, the new equator, and oddly enough, the new equator goes right through the old equator, which is Ecuador, which means equator.
And yay, Canada's going to be tropical.
Yeah, those that are close. The Western Canada, look, it's Western Canada will be, I'm going to say it's too close to the Arctic. So those that are close, so the West, even California would be, well, what is left of the West. Not much will be left. But ultimately, you see, here's the new equatorial line, and anything in that same gradient will, after the patterns change, will have a similar weather pattern. They have to get back. Right now, we have several jet streams instead of the 2. So the Earth is in her process of growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one question as well, Antonia. I mean, I've been having this information about Antarctica. Antarctica actually has a very artificial melting down, because apparently the controllers had been doing that with whatever they could, just so they could uncover the secrets there. And apparently, as you said, that it was a tropical paradise, and apparently they dated it back to 30-something million years ago, but it was actually only
12,000 years.
Well, a few thousand years. No, it's not 10,000 years at the most. Apparently, the Vedas had already been doing a cartographic exercise there, and they come up with a map of Antarctica, and it was correct. It was green and beautiful, and it still has
map.
It still has the what do you call, the seed bank of some of the most original, uncontaminated, original, very pure seeds there that we could still have for this planet, and considering that everything is already GMO here.
What we
Yeah.
found was those on that western side, or the western side of Antarctica, there are a bank of volcanoes that are erupting underneath, and that's what's making the fast melt. And also that the South Pole has already moved. They can measure it. It's off of Antarctica already. So they're trying to hide everything that's been covered up.
I know.
So even though there are weather machines and all that good stuff, what they built them for, HAARP and all those weather technologies and CERN, was to control. They built them to control those, to raise up the energies where they needed or suppress them where they needed to control the weather. Mother Nature will outshine any of those controls, I can guarantee you. Nothing will work past her. She's the final word on everything.
Wonderful. So if you could see in the near future, in the far future, how long is it going to take for the ice to actually melt and have the glorified tropical lush vegetation there in Antarctica again, do you think?
It is all in this, what I call process. And I do not want to frighten anyone, but our time frame is you watch the Earth. We have less than, I'm tired of them putting it in 100 years so that you're not frightened. We have 3 to 5 if. From 2021 to 2024, we should be under. By 2038 and on, we should be back on course again. But those first 4 years are going to be extremely, very difficult. Any survivors are going to try to wipe you out, so you have to keep undercover. That's where you use your communities to train, like universities and colleges, to share that knowledge. So when it's safe to come to surface again, you can do so. But there's a key, and I'll share that key. Casey states, and so far that's confirmable, a couple of others are confirmable as well, when Mount Vesuvius starts to flow with lava, it means that the people on the western coast, especially those in Southern California, have up to 90 days to get out. That's the first fracture. And then we have several until the final event of that final shift on the axis. Remember, the sun, in all our prophecies you see, the sun used to rise in the west and set in the east. It will be that way again. So that's just a cyclic process people have to get used to. But ultimately, Mont Pelée in Volcanic and or Vesuvius are going to be the key, the antipodal process of the volcanic activity. When one side goes, it has to balance out on the other side. You see that with the Ring of Fire doing the same. Like I said, earthquake here, it has to have an offset in its energy that's produced. It goes throughout the planet. It doesn't dissipate. It goes through the planet. It rolls through.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have less than a few seconds left. Please go to Antonia's site. She did give talks about Earth changes. Are you still doing talks on Earth?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, good. Yeah, do go to click on the link and get through to her. Thank you, Antonia. Thank you. Namaste,
Thank you.
Sister of Soul Family. Thank you.
Thank you, Soul Family.
It's going to boot us out a few seconds.
Yeah, 23 seconds, 21 seconds.
Don't do the countdown. Oh, this is a love and light
3.
team here. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Antonia, again. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.